All right. What's up?
How are you doing?
Good, good. Okay, now, for whatever reason, I can hear you crystal clear. We are good to go.
Okay, wonderful.
Hey, Joseph, what's up? Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in.
Hi, everyone. We're doing an author interview today with Evan Roberts. I'm very excited for it.
Thank you for having me. I definitely am excited to be able to share what we've been doing and appreciate you, Ivana, having me.
Absolutely.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How are you? How's everybody?
Hello. Okay, I am the Novelette, and I am the Novelette here, and we're doing an author interview, and I love doing author interviews, and this is our third try for doing it for this one. I'm excited.
I got my fingers crossed. Third time is the charm.
Yes. Alrighty. Now, since the connection's good, I'm start asking the questions.
Yeah, I feel like everything on my end is good. I can see you. I can hear you clearly. So hopefully you can hear me.
Me too. I can hear you good.
Okay, great, great. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. All right. Well, I hope you're doing well today. What did you want to be as an author? And what did you want to be as a child? And was it an author?
Yeah, so, growing up, I think the earliest memory that I have is of wanting to be a doctor and wanting to go to med school. In college, I was a pre-med bio major. And although I didn't decide to go to med school after graduating, I still wanted to stay in the sciences. So I became a science instructor at high school, starting out in Chicago and now in the South Burbs. And it's been a wonderful experience ever since.
Well, that's wonderful. My mother was a pre-medical engineer. She's going to be a cardiologist, but she has a heart condition herself, and so she had to give that up after going very far in the program. But she found different ways to fulfill that part of herself that was interested in science.
Yeah, we have a male leadership group at our school, and I see Dr. Thompson is on. He's a part of that, and it's always a wonderful thing to have them come out and talk to our boys about the medical profession and just what they can do with their life, the opportunities that are in front of them. So always excited about that. What's up, Jay Minor?
Hello.
Good to see you guys.
So what does a day in the life of Evan Roberts look
like? It's exceptionally busy. I have a 9-year-old son. I am obviously married, so I got home life. I got I'm an educator, teach biology to freshmen, and then I have my book business on the side. So, there is no balancing act. I will say that there are days where I am completely, focused on one thing to the neglect of other things. But because I have a partner and because we are on the same page and communicate very effectively, it works, and we're able to make the most of it and still keep the main thing the main thing.
Well, that's very good. It's good to have that balance and then still be able to have your passion too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yes. So what do you use to inspire you when you get writer's block, if you get writer's block?
Yeah, I would say that, so Robert, so just for saying he can't hear us, might be your volume. Check your volume, man, because on our end, we're good to go. Check the volume on your phone. You might be muted, but you definitely should be able to hear us. I think everybody else out there can hear us. But I would say a day in the life of me in terms of, or to answer your question about writer's block. So I very rarely have experienced writer's block in my experience as an author. I can tell you that Ivana, the minute I feel like I'm forcing a story or that it's just not flowing the way that I want it to flow, I step away from it and maybe I move on to something else, or, I'll read some information or go and do some more research or even find a book that I can use to pour into myself. And I think that's a great way to kind of overcome sometimes it's about you stepping away and getting a fresh perspective and then being able to come back and look at it and then continue your writing. But I would say that I never really write unless I'm inspired by something, where there's a story that I want to capture, or there's a mood that I want to capture, or there is, there's a message that I want to share, about Black boys or Black girl, whatever it is. So I never really start writing unless I'm motivated to actually write the story and to finish it up. What's up,
Well,
Robert? Thanks for joining us.
hello. I think that's wonderful. That's really amazing that you don't get writer's block because I know I get it sometimes, but to be able to look into things that are on the same vein as what we're writing, I think that always helps me a little bit get through the parts where I struggle. And also
Yeah,
having an outline in the beginning, it also helps me get through those parts because then at least I know where I'm going.
I agree with you, and I would say that the times that I felt like I was forcing a story, you could call that writer's block. I just say that maybe the information isn't flowing the way you want it to because you don't have the right perspective on it. And creativity is not something that you can just force. It's something that you work at and get better at. So stepping away for me, it helps out. And also, I would say this: I have a very structured routine in terms of when I write. I know I'm at my best early in the morning when the house is quiet and pretty much nobody else is up, so that I can gather my thoughts and really focus in on what I want to write about. So those are like some of the things that I do. Having a routine around writing, I think is really important. I don't necessarily say you have to write every single day because I don't follow that. But I do know that you have to commit time to it, and it's a craft just like anything else. So you got to get better at it.
That's true. The practice makes perfect for that, especially. So
Yes.
what would you say, coffee or tea?
Oh, I'm definitely a tea person. Pretty health conscious. Although some teas can have a lot of caffeine in them as well, but I'm definitely a tea guy. What's up,
I,
Sandy? Thanks for joining us. Sorry to interrupt. Just saying hi to people.
yes, please do. I know that you said you're vegan or vegetarian.
You know what? I vacillate between the two.
Yeah,
I would
me too.
say though that most of the time it's a plant-based diet that I follow. It has allowed me to basically experience a different level of energy and a different level of focus. So it's been a transition that I've been on for a number of years, more than a decade now, and I can't say anything but positive things about it because it has definitely been a blessing.
Me too. I really like it because I think it feels clean. Eating
Yeah.
plant based just feels clean, like internally, and then also it's good for us. It's good for the environment. It's all around just fantastic to me. I love it. It's really good.
Yep.
It opens the door to be so creative when cooking.
Yes, indeed.
So, in your opinion, what is your favorite movie or TV adaptation of a book?
Yeah, I really with my son, I know we enjoy Lion King quite a bit. I think that's a story of redemption, and I love the idea of being when you think of Simba, leaving the pride and trying to find himself, and then removing himself from the responsibilities of being the leader, but then being drawn back to that. I think that's a phenomenal story of redemption that is a great message. So I'm a fan of that. I know my son, enjoys that, and there's a number of other ones, but I would say that's probably one of the ones at the top of the list.
Lion King was always one of my favorite. I also love Beauty and the Beast. I think that those stories with the redemption in them, I think that they have so much extra depth and character development. I think that always draws me in a little bit extra.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. What's up, Nakia? Thanks for chiming in.
Hello. So would you like to tell us a little bit about what your book is about in your book series?
Sure. So the Khahari Discover series, I started that in 2016, but I actually started my writing career a lot earlier than that. I was writing back in 2011, 2012, just journaling about my experiences as an educator. And as a black man in a classroom, you're basically part of a very, very small minority because only 2% of us that make up the entire teaching profession. And so I just think that, being able to reflect on those experiences in the classroom led me to wanting to become a writer. And I started my first book was a self-help guide for teens and young adults called How to Become Influential and Highly Successful. And it was a book that was focused on teaching teenagers how to basically become, successful within and not worry about all of the external things that they wanted to, all of the monetary things, I would say, all of the materialistic things, but to actually find success within themselves first and how that process actually worked. In 2016, my son, as well as a conversation that I had with a librarian, convinced me that it was time to start going into children's literature and writing books that celebrated our boys and girls. What's up, Martez? Good to see you, brother. And so I started writing for the unique purpose of making sure that I added to the collection of books that celebrated Black boys and girls. Because in children's literature, 90% of the books are basically inanimate objects, or they are about, other children. They don't celebrate us. They definitely don't have us as a protagonist. And a lot of parents and a lot of educators are looking for books and stories that are representative of the population that they serve and their children in general. So that's what the Khahari series is all about. It's about representation on the one end. It's also about portraying our families in the right light. And if you go through any of my books, you'll see that, there's a mother there, there's a father there, there's a son there, there's a daughter there, there's a family unit there, there's a bond, a love, a connection. And that was intentionally done because I think if we look at the media and we look at the larger scheme of things, sometimes our families are not put in the.
Oh, breaking up a little.
How about now? Is that good? What's up, Shatiana? Thanks for joining us. So that's really what it's all about. We have a series that's focused on second to third graders. We also have a series that we use that we help with our toddler to kindergartners, and I think that is something that we want to focus on too. Having our children, reading books early. My son loves books. I have so many books by Black authors who have autographed them directly to my son, and our category of books just continue to grow because our children deserve that. That's what they need to see, and that's what they should have.
How exciting to have books autographed. I only have 2 now. That's wonderful. And I especially think it's lovely that you make sure to create books that highlight the joy, like the Black boy joy, #Black boy joy, and the
yes, indeed,
there as protagonists, because that is seen so few times. And a lot of times in books, a lot of times there's a Black protagonist that has to do with some sort of civil rights issue. But there are other stories for us, and I think that it's important to also show where we're just happy and like a little child experiencing new experiences in life and learning about life just the way children do. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, I agree with you, Yvonne. I think that it's important to have a way of showing the human aspect of what it means to be Black. And I think that, humanizing us and making sure that we're not caught in narratives that just, that just pigeonhole us into one thing. So while books on civil rights are important and are a necessary part of our history, I agree with you that, just having everyday conversations or books that celebrate, a family going to, a museum or family love or just being able to interact in a way that is a regular everyday occurrence. I think those are the types of stories that also benefit us because now we're not pigeonholed into just the struggle, which again is not to negate that because there are issues that exist that we do have to address.
But there's more dynamic that we can highlight and more dynamic that we can address too.
Yes, indeed. Yes, our culture is very, very dynamic. There's so many aspects to us, and to just try to put us into one little, area, I think you're doing yourself a disservice.
So what does the act of writing itself mean to you?
I'm a big proponent of understanding the connection between your mind and what you can create in your life. And I love, self-help books are some of one of my best genres that I love to read because, truth be told, if you look around the world, any idea, anything that we're using right now, we're using, Facebook Live. That was somebody's idea. We're using an iPhone or we're using, a ring stand or whatever it is. So I like to harp on the idea that you can take something and it's imaginary and it's just you and you're the only person that knows about it. And then you write it down on paper and then you start making plans toward that thing becoming a reality. And that is true of any real goal that we set out to achieve in our life. So I love writing because, you know, it's the ultimate, I got an idea and now I got to get it out on paper and now I got to share it with the world. And it's a phenomenal process. And I think that it gives you a opportunity to share your voice. But I also know that that's how success happens. It's
Yeah.
about you thinking about it. It's about you writing it down. It's about you taking steps to make it happen. So I look at everything that I do in that manner, and I think that it's a big part of why I've been able to be so successful with the books that we've actually created.
I think that's wonderful. Making that abstract into the concrete, taking the invisible and making it visible.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. So do you plan your books in advance or do you let them develop as you write?
You know, that's a great question. And I would tell you that from my experience as a writer, you know, I do a good deal of writing down like outlines or ideas and trying to figure out, you know, what the overarching message is going to be. But when I write, I don't hold myself to you got to write from beginning to end. Just like when I read a book, unless it's a novel, which I don't really read novels, but I don't read books necessarily from beginning to end. You know, I jump around quite a bit, especially if it's self-help, but I jump around quite a bit from beginning to end because it allows me to kind of understand things a little bit differently. And the same thing is true of my writing. So I might start out with this theme, but then immediately jump to, you know, what the back cover information is going to say, or what, you know, a particular character, what his characteristics or her characteristics are going to be like in the story. Because I think that if you write in any other way, it kind of limits you to think that you have to write in a linear fashion when you don't necessarily have to do that at all to be successful. What's up, brother James?
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, my man.
Yeah, hi. I think it's really, I think it's really helpful to have like an idea of the story. I think that means you have to jump around because then that means because the story doesn't come to us all consecutively in a consecutive fashion. So I think
Right,
it's important that we grasp all these different sections that we've thought of, and then when
right.
we write the story, then it can come together
Yeah.
cohesively.
And that's exactly how I approach it. You know, I think that we have some very amazing stories to tell, but you can get lost in trying to go from, let me start at the very beginning of the story and go all the way to the end. Well, who's to say you couldn't start at the end and work your way backwards? You know, there's no set rule in terms of how you can go about the writing process. It's just a matter of you understanding what is the message that you really are trying to convey to the world.
Yes, I agree with that exactly. That's very true. So, to you, what has been the hardest thing about publishing and what has been the most fun?
So I'll start with the hardest thing first. The hardest thing is I am what would be referred to as an indie author. And as an indie author, what that means is that, you know, I don't have a Random House or, you know, another major big six publishing company that is actually backing me or, and, you know, doing all the promotions and things like that. So
Right.
I would say that the biggest challenge is understanding that you are responsible for creating, producing, and distributing your book. You know, you're responsible for that as an indie author, and that's challenging for a number of reasons. Number one, you know, you have to obviously work with other people in order to get all of those things accomplished. But number two, you know, it's very expensive to print books. You know, but books this is it's not a cheap type of thing that you can do. So it requires you to have capital, to have money, to be able to create your ideas, and then to be able to get them out there to the world. And I tell people all the time in my writing workshops that 10% of it is writing, 90% of it is the marketing. Because you can have a great story, but if nobody knows about it, then how do you reach the people that you really want to reach? You know, it's like if I'm sure you make a great hamburger, you know, a vegan burger, I'll say,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it tastes great. But the issue is that it's not that it doesn't taste good, it's that where are the people who you can market it to? You know, where's that hungry crowd?
Right.
And I think that's part of the whole process. And authors have to understand that just because you've written a book doesn't mean that people are going to buy it. It means that you have to actually get out there and explain why your work is valuable and why your book is important and why people should care about it, you know?
That's so true. And I'm doing self-publishing right now. I think that what's really cool about it is that I get to have control over a lot of the details of it, the design,
Yes,
even the cover. And so I think that's really great. I feel independent doing that. I feel like I get to put my hands on like every part of it. But
right.
then we were signed with a large publisher. A lot of the marketing would still be left up to us, but all of our rights would be gone. So I think that it's really, I think it's a good alternative for authors because it's like this gives us more ability to have our own books the way we want them.
I agree with you 100%. And to get to the second part of your question, what's the best part of this process? So I go into a number of classrooms across Chicago and talk to young people about, the Khahari series, about literacy, about writing, the whole nine. And I'll tell you, I leave there and I'm so full because those young people have so much energy. Our boys and girls have so much, they are on the edge of their seats basically because they are looking for people that, care about them, that can relate to them, and they're curious. They want to know about the writing process. Every classroom I go into, kids ask me, are you famous? Because in one of my presentations, we show a clip where we were featured on Windy City Live, and so kids are just enamored by that. But I always bring it back to the fact that we have to be the example and go there and work with our young people and just let them see that they can be as successful as they want to become if we provide the right structures for them. There's nothing to stand in their way, but also understand that there are challenges in this world, and that you have to be equipped and you have to be willing to have those difficult conversations with them about the challenges that exist, but also I think do it in a way that doesn't take away their hope. I don't think anybody, wants a child who feels like there's no hope of things getting better or there's no hope of life improving. So I try to leave kids with an inspiring message about what they can become. And I'll tell you, when I leave there, Ivana, I'm just as full as they are
Yeah,
because, those experiences with them, make me feel great. And I feel privileged to be able to, share that time with them just as they're sharing that time with me.
I think that. Do you have stories on the back burner that you can share with us?
You know what? So I know a lot of authors, and the process of writing, it's a continuous thing. So I have a number of short stories that I've written about my experiences growing up in Chicago and London town. I have a number of different things that I have been working on. I want to do a series that focuses in on a Black girl in STEM. And, we talk about robotics or AI, or coding. So there's so many different stories that, that I want to do. And the goal of the Khahari series, like when I first started, I told myself that I was going to write 100 books. And that's like, that's not a small deal. That's a ton of different books. But in the process, I've come to realize just how important those books are. The coloring books that we have, the stories that we have are indicative of something that's very important. And that's this, when you go out to a bookstore, and you go into their children's section, 90% of those books are either inanimate objects or they're talking about other children. They're not talking about our boys and girls. And I think that is, that's something that we have to remedy because whether it's politics or economics or whether it's literacy, the idea that we have a voice, that we need to be heard, that our stories need to be, told, and that we don't need anybody to validate that, that we can tell those stories. We don't need anybody else, hijacking our narrative and then giving us something that we already know.
Right.
I think is important. So that is why I write. And I think every author, especially, Black authors, male or female, I think we have a responsibility to write about issues that are important. I've seen a lot of books recently on racism. I've seen a lot of books, children's books, that are tackling the issue of police brutality, that are talking about, your rights as it relates to the Constitution. So I think that those are important stories that have to be written, and if the mainstream companies are not going to allow those stories, then we have to bring those stories out.
And there's so many, especially on the hashtag amplified Black Voices hashtag right now. There's so
Hmm.
many being tweeted about and talked about and being highlighted and showcased and spotlighted and getting more eyes on them right now, especially. And I think that's really important. They're having a lot of kids books and young adult books focusing on Black issues that have been out recently that have gotten a lot of traction. But I think it's good because it shows our humanity. It also shows what we go through, and it also helps to hopefully be teachable to other communities who do read those books as well, and see the movies that have been made off of some of them.
Yes, and I love that you said educating other communities
Mm-hmm.
because that's also part of it. You know, there's groups of people who do not understand the struggle that we have experienced in this country. And because they have a false narrative that's promoted to them about who Black people are, I think it's ridiculous that you hear some of the things that you hear about our families or about our communities. And so, you know, we're not a monolith. You know, we don't all look at things the same exact way, and our culture is very, you know, it's varied. There's a lot of different things that, you know, we do, but the one thing that we can say is there's a shared experience of being a person, a Black person in America, and the way in which you're either looked at, treated, or considered that many Black people have in common that we can talk about because we've experienced it. It's not like make believe. And I think that that's the purpose of books. You know, books are supposed to inspire us. They're supposed to enlighten us. They're supposed to engage us. But they also are supposed to address the issues that exist in this world and be a way for us to not only have a record of those issues, but to give voice to those issues and why those issues are important.
I completely agree. Yes, everything. What advice would you give to budding writers out there?
Yeah, the biggest advice I would say is stay true to yourself. You know, I wanted to be an indie author because I didn't want a company coming back and telling me, you know, oh, that story, you know, you got to fix this part of it. We don't, that's too controversial. Or, you know, they wanted me to change the cover, or I just wanted complete control over it because to me, being able to tell our story and not have to sanitize it for somebody else's appetite, I think that's important.
I like
You know,
that.
I think it's important to be able to tell it as it is, and then, but also seek solutions. You know, I don't want to stay. I'm a solution oriented person. I don't want to stay in the mess. You know, I want to be able for us to actually overcome the challenges that we experience. So that would be my advice. Stay true to yourself. Find a message that's going to resonate, that is empowering. That's something that is a legacy. You know, I created Khahari Discovers not only because I wanted to empower other children, but because I want to empower my own son. You know, my son has a collection of books by Black authors that have his name in it, that have a special message written to him, that as he gets older and older, he'll be able to read those and come back to that and have a sense of understanding of those authors speaking right to him. And I think that's what we want more than anything else, you know?
That's lovely, and that's lovely for your son to be able to have that as well. I mean, what a gift! That's fantastic. That's really great. So I know you wanted to write over 100 or at least 100 books, but are there any publishing goals, like your ultimate goal in the perfect world that you would like to achieve?
In a perfect world, yeah, the Khahari Discover series would be, you know, a national, international brand. You know, used
Yes.
in school districts across the country as well as, you know, across the world. So I think that that's ultimately the goal, to be able to, you know, have an imprint like that. But, you know, more than anything, I'm proud every single time my son and I sit down and he talks about the Khahari series and he says, hey, Dad, we should maybe write a book about this. You know, or
Oh,
we should, you know, he was just saying, you know, why don't we, if somebody buys all of the books, why don't we have a special interview, you know, where they can interview the author? And so he's always coming up with cool ideas as to what we can do with it. And I'm excited by that, you know, because it's something that I'm passing on to him. Not only this love of literacy and reading and writing and all of that, but also just the idea that, you know, this is something that we can create and we can make it whatever we want it to become. You know, we're in control of it.
I I bet that feels fantastic just to have that between you two. You become a little co-author. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I bet that's so refreshing that he has ideas and is able to contribute. I bet that's so exciting.
Yes, and we got some great books coming. So, like I said, I think that's one of the things that keeps me going.
Well, whatever you all come up with, whatever's the next book, let me know and I will post about it and spotlight it on my blog and on my social media pages.
Awesome, awesome. Well, listen, I want to thank you for having me. Did we finish all the questions that you wanted to talk about?
We did. Just where can we find your work? Where can we find out more about you, the series, and your work?
Yeah, most people are aware, ejrbooks.com, just Evan J. Roberts, so EJR Books. Right now, I just released Share, 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 which is a story that teaches children the importance of involving other people. What's up, Dr. T. Williams? How are you? Thanks for joining in. So we're on Amazon right now, and I'm asking people to go on Amazon and purchase that book. It's only $1.99. It's an ebook, and then from there write a review, an honest review about what they thought. I wrote the book because we live in a world where there's too much selfishness that happens. There's too much, and I think at an early age we can start to break that habit by teaching children the importance of involving other people and being generous, and giving back of your time or your energy or your expertise. So I think that's important. I think it's something that, we don't have to wait until they become a teenager to start talking about giving back. I think it's something that we can start at a very young age. So I'm always enlightened or excited to do that and enlightened by what I see with our young people. And I know that if we want to change behavior, it's hard to do it when people become adults. I've seen teenagers have a hard time making that adjustment from believing a certain thing or just being told a certain thing over and over and having to make that transition now. So why not start at an earlier age? And I think Frederick Douglass is the person that's coined with saying, it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And I agree with that 100%. I think it's so much easier if we train our children up the right way, as opposed to trying to repair all the harm that happens as a result of either neglect or just not understanding and not being in tune with what they really are experiencing and feeling.
That's so true. I was just about to say that to build a strong to build a strong child is better than mending a broken adult. I was just about to say that.
Yes, one of our audience members says, "I love my sped goody books. Teach our young people to mentor and peer teach. Leadership rocks." And she's right. We have to be the leaders in our lives, and irrespective of the challenges that are in front of us, I think that it's very hard to discriminate against greatness. It's hard to discriminate against collective energy and collective power, and being able to see the value and love and humanity in one another. I think it's hard to battle against that. So that, if anything, I think that's what these issues are showing us today, and what George Floyd's life, is inspiring people to consider, irrespective of who he was in his past, looking at the issues at hand and looking at what happened and being able to say, hey, there's a greater power of us working together and collaboratively than it is from us being separated and being pit against each other, based on ideologies or what have you.
Thank you so much. One of the comments said thank you to us. Thank you as well.
Yes, thank you for chiming in. Thank you. What was that, Millicent? Thank you so much. And T, what's up?
I agree. I agree, especially, and it's so important that you're doing the share book, because we have to create a heart of compassion, and we have to create a heart of giving in people, as well as empathy and understanding. I think that hopefully out of this whole George Floyd situation, that's something that we can develop in a lot more people around the world.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that is part of the reason why we have such hard conversations with people that are outside of our group. I'm looking at right now the controversy between what the quarterback Drew Brees said, about, kneeling.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that some of us, some people are just so tone deaf that they just don't understand that when somebody tells you why they are protesting or why they are doing a certain thing, and then you turn around that narrative to make it fit something that relates to you, you've missed the boat. You've missed the opportunity to connect with people. And I think that's part of the challenge that we face now. And that's why we have to tell our stories. There's an old African proverb that says that the story will always, until the lion learns how to write, the story will always glorify the hunter. And I think that's true about us. Until we're able to capture our stories, until we're able to, create those narratives and own those narratives and not let people co-opt that information and use it how they want to use it. We're always going to be challenging and pushing back on all of this negativity that we see in our society right now. So, but I thank you so much for the interview. And thank you again for allowing me to share. This has been a wonderful experience. What's up, Kevin Roberts? That's my brother from years ago.
You have so much insight. I even just like listening to you talk. I'm like, it's like stuff you need to take notes for. I love it because it's a lot of insight and inspiring, and it's very true, especially for our times. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yep. And I'm just standing on mentors and people that have poured into me, and just being able to share back out, what I've learned and what I've been able to experience in my life. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, year, everything. Send me anything you have, and I'll post it on my social media, the books, everything.
Alrighty.
And thank you so much. It didn't work this time. We have it. I'm going to record it and post it on my YouTube.
Excellent. Hey, thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Take care.
Yeah, absolutely.